Emma hadn't slept more than 3 hours. Her tiny apartment smelled faintly of formula and desperation. Morning light spilled through cracked blinds as her baby, Lila, wailed in her arms. Emma bounced gently on her heels, trying to soothe her, whispering soft promises, "Just let me get through today, baby, please." Today wasn't ordinary, it was her last shot at a job interview she'd waited weeks for. Rent was overdue. Groceries were down to canned beans and stale crackers. And now, the babysitter had cancelled last minute. Emma stood in front of the mirror, eyes red-rimmed but determined. Her blouse was slightly wrinkled, her heels scuffed, but she forced herself to believe it was enough. She looked down at Lila, whose eyes had begun to close. For a moment, she considered calling to cancel. But then she imagined the eviction notice. The silence of an empty fridge. The weight of failure. "I can't lose this chance," she whispered. Wrapping Lila in her soft pink blanket, Emma tucked a bottle into her purse, grabbed her resume, and headed out. The bus ride was long, the stairs uncomfortable. But she kept her head high, rocking Lila gently with one arm, gripping hope with the other. She didn't know what waited at the end of that ride. She only knew this: she had to try. Not for herself, but for the tiny heartbeat pressed against her chest, reminding her, with every breath, why giving up wasn't an option. The moment Emma stepped into the towering glass building, she felt the shift. The air was cool, sterile, filled with the sharp click of heels and the hum of conversations that didn't pause for struggling mothers. She tightened her grip on Lila, whose soft breaths warmed her neck. Her eyes scanned the polished lobby, where professionals in tailored suits moved with purpose. Every second step drew glances, some curious, others disapproving. Her heart pounded. She could feel judgment brush past her like static. A baby at a job interview? Who does that? Emma approached the front desk, cheeks flushed. "Hi, I'm here for the 10 o'clock interview with Mr. Crane," she said, gently bouncing Lila, who was beginning to stir. The receptionist, a young woman with a sleek ponytail and barely a blink of surprise, looked at the baby, then back at Emma. "Name?" "Emma Brooks." A pause. A glance at the screen. Then, "Please have a seat. He'll be with you shortly." Emma exhaled, surprised she hadn't been asked to leave. She took a seat in the far corner, hoping Lila wouldn't cry. Her mind spun: what will he think? Will he even listen? She rocked her daughter, her thumb brushing Lila's cheek, trying to quiet both the baby and her own fears. In a sea of polished shoes and perfect resumes, Emma felt like a mistake waiting to be dismissed. But she didn't leave. Because deep down, she still believed that maybe, just maybe, someone would see past the moment. The door creaked open, and Emma stood instinctively, clutching Lila closer. She expected a stern face, maybe even irritation. But instead, a man with kind eyes and a slightly crooked tie stepped into the room, holding a coffee cup and a warm smile. "You must be Emma," he said, his voice calm, curious, not cold. He noticed the baby but didn't flinch. "And who's this little one?" Emma hesitated. "This is Lila. I didn't have anyone to watch her. I'm really sorry. I understand if this is unprofessional." Daniel, Mr. Crane, she realized, shook his head gently. "Life doesn't always give us perfect timing. Please, sit." Emma eased into the chair across from him, heart still racing. She expected the questions to start sharply: qualifications, gaps in her resume, awkward silences. But instead, Daniel leaned forward and said, "Tell me about yourself, not just the job stuff. I want to know your story." Her voice wavered as she spoke. She told him about working 2 jobs before the pregnancy, about juggling diapers and job boards, about the nights she cried quietly so Lila wouldn't hear. She didn't sugarcoat it. She didn't need to. Daniel listened, not politely, but fully. Not just hearing words, but hearing her. When she paused to adjust Lila's bottle, he waited. No rush. No judgment. Just presence. And in that quiet office, surrounded by resumes and fluorescent lights, something unexpected happened. Emma felt seen, for the first time in a very long time. There was a long silence after Emma finished speaking, the kind that felt like it could tip either into rejection or something else entirely. Lila had fallen asleep in her arms, her tiny fingers curled around Emma's necklace. Emma held her breath, expecting the polite, "We'll be in touch," line that usually meant thank you, but no. But Daniel didn't reach for a rejection letter. Instead, he smiled, genuinely. "Emma," he said, "you've already shown more strength, time management, and commitment than most people I've interviewed all year." Emma blinked. "Really?" He nodded. "You're exactly who we're looking for. Someone who doesn't give up." Tears welled up in her eyes before she could stop them. She looked down, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get emotional. It's just. I didn't think anyone would give me a chance like this." Daniel's voice softened. "We all need someone to believe in us sometimes. And if you ever need help with childcare, my younger sister runs a daycare nearby. I can introduce you. She'd love to meet Lila." Emma let out a shaky breath. The weight she'd been carrying for so long, fear, exhaustion, loneliness, began to lift, little by little. She nodded, unable to find words. It wasn't just a job offer. It was dignity. It was someone reaching out, not because they had to, but because they cared. In that moment, something shifted. Not just in her career, but in her life. She walked out with more than hope. She walked out with possibility. A year later, the lobby felt different. Warmer. Familiar. Emma walked in not as a nervous applicant, but as part of the team. Her strides were confident, her head held high. She wore her ID badge with quiet pride, and the receptionist greeted her by name. Lila, now a toddler, was at daycare just down the street, the one Daniel's sister ran, just like he'd promised. Emma dropped her off that morning with a smile and a hug, not stress and guilt. Things weren't perfect, but they were finally okay. In the break room, Daniel was pouring coffee. He looked up and smiled, that same gentle smile from their first meeting. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied, reaching for a mug. They'd grown close over the months, first as colleagues, then friends, and now something more. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was real, and slow, and honest. Built on conversations shared over coffee, shared laughter, and quiet moments when words weren't needed. Emma sipped her drink, leaned against the counter, and chuckled softly. "You know. I almost didn't come that day. I was terrified." Daniel smiled. "And now look at you." She looked down at her mug, then back up at him. "Funny how the worst day of my life turned into the beginning of everything good." He nodded, his eyes warm. Sometimes love finds you when you're just trying to survive. And in that simple moment, surrounded by ordinary things, Emma realized, she hadn't just built a new life. She'd found her home.